Hello and welcome to VMware vFabric Reference Architecture. In this screencast, we are going to discuss about migrating legacy JEE applications to vFabric Reference Architecture. We will see the usage of technology and services that VMware offers to navigate existing architecture to vFabric, showcasing how to use Spring Migration Analyzer to assess your JEE applications for migration. Customers running traditional JEE applications developed over past years need the path which leads to vFabric. We will take a look at Spring Migration Analyzer, an open source solution, a command line tool that can be used to analyze JEE applications and produce a report that describes the details like which JEE APIs are used in the code within the application. The report provides some basic text-based advice about the code using these APIs could be migrated to enable running the application in lightweight containers such as TC Server. Here, I'm going to demonstrate the use of Spring Migration Analyzer on a traditional JEE software set, the DayTrader reference application. Spring Migration Analyzer can be installed on Windows, OS X or Linux operating systems. Ensure that a Java 5 or later is installed and Java Home environment variable is configured to point to it. Spring Migration Analyzer's installation is available as a zip file from a download site. Once you have downloaded the zip, the Spring Migration Analyzer can be installed by unzipping it to a directory of your choice. You may wish to add Spring Migration Analyzer's bin directory to the system path. To ensure that the Spring Migration Analyzer is installed properly, you can run the migration analysis command. Now that we have installed the Spring Migration Analyzer successfully, to analyze an application, you can run the migration analysis script, passing it to the path of the application archive you may want to be analyzed. Here we are going to analyze DayTrader reference application archive, which can be obtained from Geronimo Maven repository. To run the migration analysis, you execute the migration analysis command followed by the DayTrader application archive, and you may wish to store the reports under the reports folder. So this is executing the migration analysis on DayTrader application archive, and it will store the reports under the reports folder followed by the DayTrader archive folder. So you can obtain that from the reports folder, DayTrader archive folder, and the index.html, which is your migration analysis report. Migration analysis report can be viewed by opening its index.html. The report is divided into three main sections. The section 1 and 2 are used for navigation, and the third section is used to show the content. Section 1 lists the different categories that the report information falls into. Clicking on a category will show the details of that category analysis. Section 2 will show the list of all the files in the application that the report information contains for. Clicking on the file will show the analysis for that file. Report summary can be viewed by clicking on the summary link on the top left navigation section. Reading the summary should help you get a feel for the effort involved in migrating an application. It provides a high-level description of the application and some guidance on how it can be migrated to the Spring. Let's go through the migration summary report and see the details highlighted by Migration Analyzer. The application contains a number of classes that uses data source transactions. Typically here there are no code changes required in order to migrate, but it's always good to consider using Spring JDBC template and Spring Transaction Management to simplify the code. The application utilizes JMS API. Here, there are little or no migration changes required because JMS can also be used within TC Server. However, during migration, it may be worth to consider using Spring JMS support. For instance, you can change the messaging code to use JMS template. The application utilizes JNDI API. JNDI is available in TC Server and there is no work required to migrate the application. However, it may be worth to consider using Spring's JEE JNDI lookup support to perform any JNDI lookups rather than using JNDI API directly from the code. The application utilizes JTA API. JTA API is covered under Programmatic Transaction Demarcation. TC Server does not include a transaction manager supporting the JTA APIs. Application code using JTA, whether POJO services or EJBs using bean managed transactions, can be migrated using number of approaches. The most direct approach, often requiring no code level refactoring, is to plug an external JTA transaction manager, such as Atomicos, because such a third party transaction manager is an additional component that must be obtained, supported, and possibly licensed. Compare the desirability of this approach against the alternative approach of refactoring the code away from the use of JTA. The general approach to refactoring code away from JTA API is to refactor the code to use the corresponding local resource transaction APIs. As an example, this includes direct driving of transactions through the JDBC connection object or JPA's entity manager or Hibernate session or equivalent. When migrating the code that programmatically uses transactions to Spring Framework, the most direct approach is to refactor the Spring programmatic transaction template. Consider the benefits of expending additional effort to refactor the use of Spring declarative transaction support. In this variant, transactions are demarcated to external XML-based transactions or internal annotations directly in the source. Although moving to this declarative approach requires additional work, transactional handling boilerplate is removed from the application code, with the general net benefit of significantly simplifying and clarifying application logic, reducing the amount of code which must be maintained and reducing the likelihood of bugs. The application utilizes EJB API. EJBs are the most significant JEE constructs to migrate to TC Server. Depending on the EJB version and the type, migrating of a EJB can be a simple matter of substituting a Spring managed component, or it can entail a complex refactoring. The general approach to refactoring session beans is to re-implement the logic as POJO services. EJBs with container managed transactions imply that the transactions are applied on EJB code using a declarative process, where annotated EJB deployment descriptors indicate that the container should make certain methods transactional when invoked. The use of CMT must be refactored. The preferred approach is to refactor container managed transaction code to use Spring declarative transaction functionality. As there is essentially a one-to-one mapping with respect to transaction demarcation semantics, transaction support in Spring can generally be considered a complete functional superset of that available in EJB container, and is able to drive transactions to both Java Transaction API and local resource APIs. Further, the Spring transaction support contains additional integration with Spring Data Access Support code. Spring supports declarative demarcation of transactions through either external to the code as in XML-based transactions or internal annotations directly within the source. The application contains a number of message-driven beans. Assuming that an external JMS provider is available, the migration of each MDB is typically reasonably straightforward. Such beans are usually migrated to Spring message-driven POJO, driven by message listener container. The analysis performed by Spring Migration Analyzer can detect many different things about an application. Depending on the nature and complexity of application, it detects the usage of variety of different APIs used within the application code. For instance, the usage of vendor-specific APIs such as JBoss, WebLogic, and WebSphere implementations. Spring Migration Analyzer also detects the usage of Java Enterprise Edition and vendor-specific deployment descriptors within the application. It also measures the count of various EJB components used within the application, which will essentially help us to measure the size of the application. VMware offers JEE to vFabric TC Server migration service to help customers migrate existing JEE based applications from app servers such as IBM WebSphere, Oracle WebLogic, or Red Hat JBoss to vFabric TC Server. Applications deployed on simple lightweight containers such as TC Server requires fewer resources, reduced license cost, and app server installation footprint requiring less hardware, which potentially allows applications to scale horizontally. Removing legacy JEE constructs and migrating to TC Server places the application in a much better position to be hosted on a cloud platform. While at times you have to factor some of the code, our PSO services has helped many customers to migrate their code base within a matter of weeks. This relatively short code migration path has helped customers save on license cost of their traditional JEE servers by migrating to TC Server, which is a more cost-effective container. With this, we conclude the assessment of traditional JEE applications using Spring Migration Analyzer, which will essentially help us in aiding technical analysis and helps us focus estimates and efforts to move to Spring and vFabric. Thank you for watching the screencast.